So what you just witnessed is my new add-on, the Blender Google Earth Studio. I know I'm bad with names, but you can import entire Google Earth scene with 2 clicks, just 2 clicks. The first one is to select the folder where you saved from the Google Earth. The second one is to create it into the scene, and that's it. And the awesome thing about this is, let's say if you change your Google Earth, all you have to do is point the directory to the latest Google Earth and then hit the create again, and it'll update all your track points and your camera. That's it. Okay, what you're going to see right now is a real fast introduction on how to do it. So as you can see, so this is the Google Earth Studio folder that we just downloaded. And you should see footage, the .esp, and the .json. And you're going to hit accept. So as you can see over here, now it's going to the correct location. Now you're going to hit this button, create. And then you're going to hit 0 on your numpad, hit play. And just like that, you now have it in Blender. Yep, that's it. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the entire video on how I did it. And the very first thing you want to do is download the add-on. So I will put the link to this in the description. We're going to download it. We're going to download zip. And here's the add-on. So this is what you're going to be using. And so let's go ahead and open up a new Blender file. I have one opened up right here. So what I'm going to do is AX delete. So now what we're going to do is we're going to save as, and we're going to call this Disney. So we're going to save as. Okay, so now it's saved. So here it is. Okay, we're going to go to edit, preferences. Let's install the latest version. Downloads here. We're going to go to add-ons, and we're going to click on this. Now, preferably in, let's say, your documents folder, you would have a folder called Blender add-ons, and you would save all your Blender add-ons onto that. And we're going to say install add-on. Now, it takes a little bit. There we go. See? And we're going to click on this. So that's how you install the add-on. Now, I'm going to hit N on my keyboard, and the BGES. We're going to click on that. And as you can see, there's only 2 buttons. One is the directory, and the other one is to create it. So that's pretty straightforward. So if you don't have Google Chrome installed on your computer, you have to have Google Chrome installed in order for the Google Earth Studio. So the reason why we have to use Google Chrome is because the Google Earth Studio does a lot of interesting hacks, essentially, in order to display the 3D models. So if you want to go to Google Earth Studio, you're going to have to type in Google Earth Studio. You're going to search it, and here we go. And it does take a little while to sign up. So down here it says to sign up. Now I'm already signed up, so I'm good. But if you haven't signed up, it takes 2 days to a week. And if you're thinking about playing around with this, you got to do it now because you're going to be waiting for them to essentially say yes. Now, since I'm already signed in, I can either click this blue button here or click this blue button here, and it'll go to it. Once you create different projects and stuff, you can click here. You can open latest projects or open a specific project. But since we're creating one from scratch, we're going to click on blank project. Okay, so one of the very important parts about the name, don't have any spaces in the name, please. Disneyland underscore. So I'm not doing any spaces. Okay, so no spaces in the name, please. Up next is the frame rate. So Blender by default is 24 frames per second. You really don't need a higher frame rate. I mean, let's be real here. 24 frames per second is perfect. Now, this is one of the things that I'm not too happy about the Google Earth Studio is you have to tell it how many frames you want, like the max amount of frames. So you can't change it later on. 450 divided by 24 is 18.75 seconds. So that should be more than enough for what we're doing. Okay, so Disneyland Blender, no spaces. Frame rate, 24 frames per second. And duration, you have to calculate that out. And we're going to hit start. Okay, so it has started. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to search in Disneyland. And let's do here, left click to drag. And then I can scroll in like that. So let's just do tilt. So tilt makes it go that way. And then pan, in case you were wondering, is this direction. Google Earth is very finicky. So 55 might be pushing it. So let's just keep at 55. And you really don't want to do 90. You want to go like a little bit below that. Yeah, so I found that works really well. Okay, so altitude's good. So it's not too low. And the tilt is not 90 degrees. If you have to do 90, just do like 89, for instance, right? Just don't do 90. So I think that's pretty good. Okay, so once you're happy with how it looks, you're going to click on this. So it's the three little dots. Now, if you notice, before this was essentially this hole. Now it's full. So when it's full, right, that means you're on that keyframe. Now, if I use my arrow keys on my keyboard and move to the right, as you can see, now it's empty. So that means you're not on that keyframe. And again, Google Earth does a really bad job with Command Z of undoing stuff. So you want to try do it the first time around. So, and real quick, we're just going to save this. So I'm going to save it. And let's say 72. And what I personally like to do is just drag here. So I'm just left clicking and dragging. So it's like really accurate of where I want it to go. Once you're happy with it, you're going to click on that. I'm going to drag back here. I'm going to hit the space bar. I think that's a pretty good position right there. So I'm going to hit record. Okay, I'm going to go back. And I'm going to hit the space. So goes. So now if you see the little arrows right here, so that's how it's, right now it's doing the auto ease. So let's say we just do linear, right? So now when we hit play, it doesn't really ease in. What? We should probably do an auto ease. Let's just be real here. Play. And that looks pretty smooth. And when you're doing the shadow catcher, right, you need to know where stuff is. What's really nice about the tracking points is it automatically go to the correct location. So let's say I want this roof right here. I'm going to right click. I'm going to set track point, and I'm going to rename it as roof, like that. So now if we go through, as you can see, it's actually tracking that point. Rinse 1, 2, and let's add a few here. So let's do Main Street, set track point. We're going to do water, left. So I think that's pretty good. And the nice thing is this is, if you want to add more track points and put into your scene, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay, now we have everything. We're going to make sure it's saved. Okay, we're going to render it. Disneyland Blender, okay, and there's no spaces. Now, this part is the very important part. So turn up your volume. Please put this under JSON. Do not put it under After Effects. This is After Effects. Please put it under JSON. .json. JSON. Otherwise, my program will not work. The only real thing that you can have different from what I have here, right, is the range. So I have frame 0 to 225. So that you can modify. Everything else you want to copy. Okay, so I think we're good on that. And we're going to hit start. So now it's going to render. Alrighty, so it just finished. So as you can see, now it's under my downloads. So what we're going to do, because this does eat up your processing power on your computer, we're going to just, so it's saved. We're just going to close this guy. Here we go. So Disneyland Blender, here it is. So I double clicked on it for Mac to uncompress it. So now I'm just going to drag it over. And there's a lot of stuff in here. So make sure it's the .json. If you screw it up, it's not the .json over here, and it's the After Effects one, please go back, make sure it's the JSON. Now, what we're going to do is, this is all nice and clean. There's nothing in here. We're going to go to that location. And here's Disneyland Blender. And so as you can see, so this is the Google Earth Studio folder that we just downloaded. And you should see footage, the .esp, and the .json. So these are the three things you should see. And you're going to hit accept. So as you can see over here, now it's going to the correct location. Now you're going to hit this button, create. And then you're going to hit 0 on your numpad. And if you don't have a numpad, then you're going to go to camera, active camera, hit play. And just like that, you now have it in Blender. So again, some tricks to keep it smooth, right, is you don't want to do 90 degrees for the tilt for your camera. And you want to make sure your altitude is high enough. So this is beautiful. And you know what's even more beautiful? So real quick, we're in Eevee. So let's go to render view. So we have real-time shadow catchers. That's huge. Something you need to keep in mind is the way I have this set up is I'm doing a bunch of matrix multiplications and stuff. So you can't just scale it. If you just scale it, right? So if we run this again, it'll go back to the original scale. Now you can move this. You can move it, right? Because all that's happening is this mesh right here, its parent is the tracking point, the plane right here, the shadow catcher. And the reason why I did that is in case if you move your tracking points, then your mesh also moves with it. So if you're creating a new mesh, you want it to be connected to a tracking point. So we're going to hit G, and we're going to hit Tab, A, and we're just going to scale this up a little bit. GX, GY, GX. Now, if you're wondering why the color looks slightly different, well, that's because on how I'm doing the lighting. Remember, so light is actually affecting this. So it's not just shadows. So that's just something you want to keep in mind. But luckily, right, Google Earth is not perfect. So you can probably get away with something like that. So that looks pretty good. And so now if we select our monkey, and now it actually looks like it's like on the roof. It's like on the side of the roof. I mean, look at that. I mean, that's insane. So what we're going to do over here is we're going to just scale these up a little bit. Tab, scale. So remember, you can't just scale it in the object mode. You have to scale it in the mesh mode. So you can't move these tracking points right here. So these are fixed. So if you want to move the shadow catcher, what you're going to have to do is just move it right here. We're going to rotate the monkeys a little bit. Oh, another thing to note. So it starts on frame 2. Again, it's one of those weird Google Earth Studio things. I have no idea why. So 0 and 1, no matter what I do, is always at the same exact position for the camera data. So what I did is essentially just an offset of 2, and it works great. So now we're going to go through And we're going to do tab, scale it up, tab, tab. We're going to scale this again. I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to move over here. Now, something really cool. So Shift B over here, right? So remember I was telling you if like it actually does the altitude correctly? I mean, look at that. So the water is over here, and then this is the bridge, and then here's the water on this side. So it's actually able to properly place it. That tree should hide it. And luckily for us, so what we're going to do is we're just going to delete that monkey right here. And we have this, so we're going to rotate X 90, rotate Y 90. Okay, we're going to hit G, and we're just kind of want to get the general shape of it. So now if we go back, as you can see, it's hiding it now. Here, Shift S, cursor selected, Shift A, we're just going to add a little point, G, and we're just going to increase the lighting to be, so here's bloom, okay, so we have the material, and we're going to do 10, let's just do, that looks pretty cool. So we're going to just GZ, and as you can see, the coloring is a little bit different. So you have to play around with it. So there we go. So now it actually looks like, right, that there's actually this glowing white monkey in front of the Disneyland castle. And this is in Eevee. So I can't stress enough like just how freaking insane this is. Because this would take me doing this, right, would take me an entire week, but now it's just like, you know, like maybe half an hour in order to set it up and make it look really cool. So another little trick, right, to really emphasize that these objects are here is to add a little rotation to these. But now if we go here, so as you can see, all these are rotating now. So the only thing left to do is to render it out. We're going to do MP4. And oh, also, YouTube likes MP4 better than the other formats. So if you want to try to load something up really quickly, do the MP4. We don't have any audio, so that's good. And now we're going to do the location. For some reason, Blender sometimes assumes that your computer is going to figure it out. So just do the .mp4. So let me just make sure I did that because it's hard to see the dot. So .mp4. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're going to accept it. Okay, so FPEG video, MPEG-4, those stay the same. We're just going to save it. So we're in that view, and we're going to render animation. So as you can see, it is rendering. So I'm just going to pause the screen real quick and wait for it to finish. But as you can see, this is why I'm not just doing the images. I'm just doing the video because it's pretty fast with all things considered. So let me just make sure it's going to the correct location. Yep, right here. And as you can see, it's .mp4. Cool. So I'm just going to pause this. All right. So it just finished. So we're just going to close this. Make sure you save because that's the worst thing in the world when you don't save. Okay. So now we're going to open it up. Just a quick recap of what we did. So we use an add-on that I created that you can take in any Google Earth Studio that's JSON, right? That you export as JSON and import directly into Blender without any problems at all. And also you can update it. So for instance, let's say the camera was jittery or I want to add another track point, right? I mean, that's valid. You want to add another track point. So what you would do is you would go back to Google Earth Studio, you would open it again, you would go through the process of rendering it out and then exporting it. And then all you have to do in the add-on is simply point the directory to your new Google Earth Studio folder. So the new thing you downloaded from Google Earth Studio, hit create, and it'll update your scene. So it won't delete what you already did, but it'll just update it. So I'm really excited to see what you guys will come up with. And I'm probably going to do another 2 tutorials on how I did the EV lighting, the world lighting, because it looks exactly the same for cycles. And in my opinion, it looks really realistic. And then 2 is how I did the EV base, well, not EV, just the material base shadow catcher. So it works both in cycles and EV. And not only that, but it can also have light and different reflections on it. So until then, I'll see you guys next time.